Hello and welcome to the Flourish Wellness Project Wellness Wednesday. We're going to be talking about building wellness into your semester. Before we get started, I'd like to do a heartfelt acknowledgement of the territories, the traditional, unceded, and ancestral territories where we're located, of the Silk peoples and the Secwepemc peoples, and to express our gratitude to live, work, and learn on these beautiful lands. So my name is Sarah Lefebure. I'm counselor at the Penticton campus of Okanagan College, and I have my colleague Sam Johnson here as well. Sam, do you want to say hello?
Yes, hi everyone. Like Sarah had mentioned, I am the counselor for the Salmon Arm and Revelstoke campuses, and very happy to have you join us today.
Wonderful. So this is a pre-recorded version of a workshop that will be offered live later this week. There won't be the same interactive elements that you would have in a live Wellness Wednesday session, but you'll have all of the same content and the prompts for self-reflection as well. Feel free to pause the session at any point if you need to take a break or want to do some more thinking about the questions and ideas that we're sharing with you. So we'll skip the workshop guidelines since we don't have any live participants with us, but please do always take care of yourself and seek support if you need it. I'd like to start the session with a brief breathing exercise. I'm going to be reading from a little script here, so I'll just get my paper ready. This is adapted from Zindel Segal's mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for depression. It's a 3-minute breathing space. It's a way to step out of automatic pilot and invite an awareness of the present moment. So we're going to start with purposeful posture. Position yourself. Well, you may want to close your eyes for this actually. So do feel free to close your eyes or have a gentle downward gaze. We'll just take a few moments to connect. Position yourself in such a way that you can sit comfortably, but away from the back of your chair, if possible. Bring length to your spine and keep a sense of softness about your posture. Rest your hands facing up or facing down on your thighs, and lift each foot with care, and then gently place them back down on the ground. Tuck your chin in slightly towards the chest, and then either close your eyes or look down towards the ground. Bring your awareness inward and begin to focus on your breath. Paying attention to the inhale as your breath travels in through your nose, down through your throat and into your lungs, and then to the exhale as your breath travels out from your lungs, up through the throat, and out through your nose or mouth. In this way, you can bind your awareness to your breath. There's no need to change your breath in any way, no need to make it deeper or fuller. Just notice the natural rhythm and pace of your breath. It may even be helpful for you to say to yourself, I am breathing in, I'm breathing out. Now bring awareness to the physical sensations in your body, perhaps noticing the floor underneath your feet, the chair underneath your legs, or other sensations in your body, including places of pressure, contact, or temperature. Now bring awareness to your thoughts and notice what thoughts are popping into your mind. There's no need to get pulled in by any of these thoughts. As best as you can, just notice them as they occur and let them go. Now bringing awareness to your feelings, perhaps noticing where they are in your body. Noticing any qualities linked to these feelings and not getting wrapped up in what they might mean. The last step here is to expand your awareness to your whole body so that you have a sense of your head, torso, arms, and legs resting here in the chair. Simply get a sense of the whole self being here in this present moment. You might even imagine that your whole body is breathing itself with each inhale and with each exhale. And when you're ready, open your eyes if they've been closed and bring awareness back into the room to close this practice and to continue with our session. Thanks for sharing that little moment to breathe with me. I always feel calmer when I do that. Move on. I think we have our agenda next, so I'll give you an idea of what we're going to cover in this session, which will probably be a little bit shorter than an hour. So we're going to do a check-in, and then we'll talk about wellness, what it is and why it matters more than ever during COVID. An introduction to the wellness wheel, which Sam will lead, as well as a discussion about how COVID-19 has impacted our wellness. We'll look at a model that helps us to identify whether we're flourishing or languishing. We'll then identify our 5 wellness non-negotiables, and then we'll check out. So hopefully that sounds like it'll be interesting. I think so. So normally we would do this as an interactive whiteboard activity because we're just doing a recording. Sam and I will share what went well for us in recent times, despite all of the challenges going on in these uncertain times. Sam, do you want to share what's gone well for you lately?
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. I think what's gone well for me lately was, despite all the smoke and the challenges that came with that honestly felt like one more thing on top of a whole bunch of other things. But I feel like what went well is I really tried to still be active each day, despite the smoke. So sometimes that meant I was in my basement stretching or doing a video, for wellness or activeness. But I still did it. I was still able to be active despite the smoke.
Oh, good for you. That's really great, Sam. My what went well this week is that I finally have artwork on my home office wall. And I bought 2 canvases at like practically the dollar store. And I plan to paint both of them myself, but then my daughter said, I'd really like to paint one too. So we took some time yesterday and did art together. At one point, she had her painting is the one with the mountains in the background, and she said, "Oh, I've ruined it. It looks terrible." And I was able to help her work through it and accept that sometimes in the process, we make a mistake, but that there are ways to work around it. So I helped her to fix up the sky, and we got through it. So now I have paintings on my wall.
Oh,
I'm feeling, yeah. So you may want to check in yourself with what's gone well lately, despite all of the challenges inherent to this time. You feel free to pause the video if you'd like to do that. Over to you, Sam, for a little talk about wellness.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. So wellness, what is it and why it matters more now than ever? There's a quote up here from Myers, who defines wellness as a way of life oriented toward optimal health and well-being, in which body, mind, and spirit are integrated by the individual to live life more fully within the human and natural community. Ideally, it is the optimum state of health and well-being that each individual is capable of achieving. I also want to add on to that a little bit, because I also like to look at wellness as a really active and really personal process, one that each person really engages in for themselves, in which the choices that we make are really working towards a more healthy and kind of fulfilling life. So it's really an active kind of gift to ourselves in a way. And I think that why wellness matters more now than ever is because right now, I think with the pandemic, there's so many things in our lives that are out of control. But I think some of those choices or the things we engage in for our personal wellness, those we can control in a way, and those can really directly impact how we navigate these difficult times in a state of wellness or in a healthy approach. Oh, Sarah, do you mind flipping to the next slide? Thanks. So this next slide is the wellness wheel, and it's actually just another visual way, I think, of understanding wellness. And in essence, I think it just really highlights that there are many different parts of ourselves and many different areas of our lives that need attention and that play a role in our mental health and wellness. This particular wellness wheel is broken down into 7 different dimensions of wellness, and I'll just kind of briefly touch on each of those dimensions to give some context. So spiritual wellness, that's a really personal process of understanding your own beliefs and your own values. It's also about feeling connected to something outside of yourself. And for some people, that can be something like a formal religious practice, or for other people, that could be something achieved by being out in nature or feeling kind of connected to the earth. So that's kind of some of the dimension of spiritual wellness. Emotional wellness, that involves really understanding and accepting ourselves and our emotions, and really having the ability to try to cope with challenging situations with a positive outlook. Intellectual wellness, that's accomplished through the times that you expand your knowledge, you challenge your mind, you have the desire to learn things, or you stay curious and improve your skills. Physical wellness, that's one that most of us are familiar with. That's kind of developed through healthy eating habits, physical activity, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, personal hygiene, all those different things. Social wellness, that's the ability to connect and develop and maintain relationships, and that can be with friends, family, coworkers, anybody kind of in your world or in your bubble. Environmental wellness, that's the ability to recognize the impact of our personal and environmental decisions and the quality of the environment and surroundings in which we live. The safety of that, does it make us feel good? What does that look like? And then, of course, financial wellness, and that's being able to be aware of your financial situation and to take the steps to kind of just manage that wisely. So I guess what I'll say is that the major takeaway here is that all these dimensions of wellness are interconnected, and not one is more important than another. They are all important. And I think depending on where you're at and what's going on in life, some of these different parts of our wellness can come in and out of balance. So it's important to bring awareness to whether your wellness wheel is balanced, because if it isn't, that can really make it more difficult to productively handle some of those daily stressors that we face. And I like to kind of equate having an unbalanced wellness wheel to having a flat tire. When you have a flat tire, it's really there's a struggle, I guess, to steer you straight or in the right direction, and sometimes things can be really bumpy and shaky. So having a balanced wellness wheel is like having a full wheel on your car and how you drive. Much easier. The next slide, please. Okay, so now we want to look a little bit more about how COVID has impacted our wellness wheels. Because it has had some impacts. It's hard to not have had some different strains or different parts of our wellness wheels come out in and out of balance because of the pandemic. I know for myself, the intellectual part of my wellness wheel was very much challenged at the beginning of the pandemic with all the new things that we were having to learn and bringing things online. That was definitely, I noticed that was getting overloaded, as well as my environmental part of my wellness wheel with my husband being home working. I was at home working. My 2 teenage sons were at home trying to homeschool, and just we were all in each other's space 24/7. So that part of my wellness wheel definitely got a little bit overloaded as well. And I think another area I'll draw your attention to here is the social part of the wellness wheel. I know there's been a lot of recognition around the fact that this experience for post-secondary students right now, being online in a virtual environment and the social distancing, has really impacted the ways in which students have been able to connect with one another before. So the social impacts could be significant for students in ways that they haven't been in the past. So those are just a few examples. What we would do right now in our usual session is get others to kind of interact and put pieces up here on the board. So I would just encourage you to reflect for yourself on how COVID has impacted your wellness wheel. I will also add here that sometimes things can be positive too. So some of the things I mentioned were maybe more challenging things, but COVID may have impacted your wellness wheel in a positive way. So, for example, I know a lot of people got out walking a lot more because maybe they had more time to do that, or even environmental. I know a lot of people were decluttering and dejunking and organizing their homes because they were at home because they weren't really out and about being able to do other things. So there is some positives here too in how COVID has impacted the wellness wheels of all of us. So I just encourage you to reflect on that. And what you do notice, it might just be areas that you might want to draw attention to if you think it's a bit unbalanced. And I'll pass it back to Sarah to take us through this piece.
Great, thank you, Sam. So this is another model that we wanted to introduce to you for looking at mental health and well-being. It's the model developed by Dr. Corey Keyes, who's Canadian, and it introduces the idea that wellness, mental health is not just sort of a one-dimensional concept or experience, that really there are two axes here. So you can see on the horizontal axis, certainly when we think about mental health, we can think about the presence or absence of mental illness. So you see going from the right-hand side, it says low mental illness all the way through to high mental illness. And that is something that could potentially be a fixed reality for an individual. Perhaps they have a diagnosis that will be a lifelong mental illness that they'll live with. Although certainly with many mental illnesses, there's the ability to manage and lower symptoms. But then sometimes we'll also have acute experiences of mental illness that come up for a short or medium term length of time in our lives and then dissipate. So that could change for people over time throughout their lives. So at any given point, each of us will situate ourselves somewhere on that axis between low mental illness and high mental illness. But that's not all when we talk about mental health or mental wellness. There's also the vertical axis, which going up from the bottom goes from a low level of mental health up to a high level of mental health. And by mental health, I've just got some wording here from Corey Keyes himself. Basically, he means feeling good about and functioning well in life on the emotional, psychological, and social plane. So you can actually see some overlap with the wellness wheel that we were just looking at. And when you look at these two axes, basically you can figure out where am I on the mental illness axis, and then where am I on the low to high mental health axis. And I really liked how Sam was talking about the fact that wellness is an active undertaking, that it's not just something that happens to us, but it's about what we do. And I really believe that the low to high mental health axis is about the things that we can actively do in our lives to have an impact on how, what were those words again, how good I'm feeling about and how well I'm functioning in my life. And so that, I really think that our level of mental health can kind of fluctuate probably more often than mental illness will. Even throughout the day, you may notice I'm really feeling a lot of wellness and feeling that positivity and high functioning. And then at another point in the day, it might feel a little bit lower. So when you look at this model, you can see that basically anyone, regardless of whether they have a mental illness or not, can find themselves to be flourishing at times, to be really thriving in their lives, whether, like I said, whether they have mental illness or not, or to be languishing. So it's possible for people to have an absence of mental illness, but to still have a low level of mental health and to be, you know, maybe more just kind of surviving and getting by rather than thriving and really showing high levels of wellness. So basically, all of that was to introduce the idea that at any point, we can sort of check in with ourselves about whether we're flourishing or languishing. So this is kind of another tool for assessing where we're at. And certainly the current context with so many things happening in our world that are outside of our control, that's one of the factors that could contribute to how likely it is for each of us that we're flourishing or languishing right now. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, where we bring in the wellness wheel again and look at that as a way of assessing or sort of looking at what the signs might be that that you're languishing. So we all know ourselves better than anyone else usually, in terms of like what those signs are that, oh, maybe my mental health is slipping a little bit and I'm not functioning as well as I usually do or as I hope to. So you could use the wellness wheel to sort of check in with yourself on a daily or weekly basis to sort of see, where am I at in terms of flourishing and languishing? So the signs for each of us will be a little bit different, but and we would be doing a discussion if this were the live, we will in the live workshop. But I'll talk you through here some examples that you might notice. So for the spiritual dimension of the wellness wheel, you might notice that you're sort of falling out of the practices that you usually use to connect with your spiritual traditions, be they religious or otherwise. So, maybe you're not going to church as often, or if you use meditation as a way of connecting with your spirituality, noticing that you're not keeping up with those practices could be a sign of sort of slipping. In the emotional dimension, you might notice that you're more easily tearful or angry. I know I certainly have at certain points during the COVID experience. In the intellectual dimension, you might have feelings of just being overwhelmed by all the things you're having to think about and work through. And I know that happens in a typical semester for a lot of us as it is. You might notice difficulty concentrating. Physical signs of languishing might be exhaustion or tension in the body, noticing that you don't have the energy to do the activities that you usually enjoy. I know for me, the tension that I usually feel is in my shoulders and upper back. It's where I carry a lot of stress. In the social dimension, I think often a sign of languishing can be withdrawing from interacting with others. I know we're in a time where we're having to limit our social interactions in a lot of ways, but if you have been practicing safe ways of connecting with people, particularly online or having phone calls, and you notice yourself not having that same energy for connecting or desire to do it, sometimes that can be a sign of starting to languish. In the environmental dimension, I think often things like not making our bed or leaving a lot of clutter around our workspace, sort of a general feeling of disorganization can be a sign of languishing. And in the financial dimension, not keeping up with financial responsibilities, perhaps not paying bills on time, or excessive online shopping, which I know is kind of a risk factor in these online times too. Those could also be signs of languishing. So those are just a smattering of examples. And I do, if you're watching this recording, I do invite you to pause the video and think about what your signs are. What are the patterns or behaviors that you notice that might be kind of red flags that, oh, maybe I'm not doing so well right now and I could use a little bit of support or a little bit more care towards my wellness. So feel free to pause, but we will move on. I'll pass it over to Sam.
Great, thanks, Sarah. So The opposite of languishing, as Sarah has pointed out, is the flourishing. And so I'm just going to take us through the dimensions of the wellness wheel from that perspective as well. And I think, once again, this is a very personal experience for each of us within these different dimensions. And knowing when you're flourishing, sometimes people might know, well, I don't know if I am, or I don't know if I am not. But sometimes that's about just kind of trying to bring some awareness and being kind of present in some of those moments to kind of start to decipher between these kind of two ways of being. So with the flourishing aspect, like Sarah said, with the spiritual, this would be where you are being consistent about the practices that you usually engage in, that kind of speak to this part of your life. So consistency and continued practice in here. With the emotional aspect and signs you're flourishing, that might be having like that time to check in with yourself and being able to express what it is that you're feeling. So feeling like you're able to say, this is how I feel and this is why I'm feeling it, that might mean that you're flourishing in the emotional aspect. The intellectual piece, I know for me that comes with a desire to learn something new, feeling curious. I know for myself, like I'd mentioned, that intellectual piece for me was really overloaded. Well, I didn't want to read anything. I really noticed whenever I read something, I skim read it and I just had to go back and reread it. So I know when I'm flourishing, when I'm reading something and I'm engaged in it, I'm really kind of soaking it in. That tells me I'm kind of flourishing. The physical aspect, you might notice you're flourishing by feeling strong in your body, whether that's from sleep, whether that's from engaging in exercise, whether that's drinking enough water, but just feeling more strong kind of in your physical self, that can be a sign that you're flourishing. The social piece is, it might be connecting with others in your life. So it's the opposite of withdrawing. You might be reaching out. You might be initiating social contact. For me, I know it's responding to text messages. I know when I'm flourishing, I'm more apt to, respond to text messages rather than kind of just get back to them at a later date. Environmental. That can be feeling organized kind of in your home, whatever that might mean to you. It might mean waking up to the dishes being done in the morning. I know that's a big one for me. Having a clean kitchen when I wake up tells me I'm flourishing. And then financial, that is, sticking to a budget, maybe feeling like everything's paid on time. Those might be signs for yourself that you're really flourishing as well. So once again, here in our live session, we would be doing an interactive kind of brainstorm around this, but just to encourage you to kind of try to go through these different dimensions and try to identify things for yourself that tell you that you're flourishing, because that will help you when you're kind of in those moments to figure out where am I at and what do I actually need for my wellness. And back to Sarah.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, and I really think that although those are just sort of the beginning of examples for each of the different dimensions, developing the ability to check in and have that awareness of what's going on for us, to notice, oh yeah, these are signs I'm languishing, or these are signs that I'm flourishing, sort of gives us a sense of like, what do I need more of or less of to have that nice balanced, well rolling wheel that Sam was talking about earlier. So that's great. We'll move on. And kind of following on from that, we want to invite you to develop the idea of 5 wellness non-negotiables. And so this was inspired by a training program that we did actually called Thriving in Action out of Ryerson University, where they taught about this, that, we all have our own unique needs for wellness. And often they can kind of get set to the side because we have a paper due or, a really big presentation coming up, or it's exam time, think talking about a lot of examples for students, but the same can go for employees as well, where we just feel like we need to be productive and meet whatever goal it is, and I'll take care of my wellness later. But more and more we're realizing that tending to our wellness is not just an afterthought, it's really an essential to allow us to be mentally and intellectually healthy and also effective and that will actually help us to go further with the work that we're doing and the goals that we're setting for ourselves. So the idea of non-negotiables is to figure out what you need to do on a daily or at least very regular basis to ensure your ongoing wellness. So in this exercise, we'll invite you to take a few minutes to reflect on the actions or habits that help you to feel well, to flourish. Now, these might be things that you're already doing on a regular basis that you just want to recommit to. They may be things that you've done in the past that you know are really helpful, or it may be new ideas, maybe that you've heard in this workshop or that you've been considering, but have been a little bit wary or shy about starting to build in. Any mixture of those is fine. You really want to make them things that you will actually do and that you can hold yourself accountable for. So you may, after I finish talking, you may want to pause the video and take some time to reflect about this. You might want to brainstorm which habits are so key to your wellness that you know you need to make them a priority on a daily or a regular basis. Again, things that you're already doing, that you've done in the past, or that you'd like to try. And then if you have more than 5, really try and distill it down to the 5 that are the most essential for you, and commit to making them your non-negotiable. So building them into your routine. That might look like writing them into your agenda and reminding yourself, or putting some reminders in your phone. Might look like carving out a bit of extra time. Like for some of my non-negotiables, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning so that I have some quiet time before the rest of my family wakes up, so I can get those things done. Or it might mean taking some quiet time before bed, where you put your devices away and make sure that you can dedicate some time to it. A lot of it is about really making sure that they're built into your schedule. Now, just in case you're having some uncertainty about what I mean by non-negotiables, I thought I'd give you an example or some illustration of what my 5 non-negotiables are. I actually have a list of 4 here. I'm trying to remember my 5th one, but drinking water regularly, cheers, is my probably my number 1 non-negotiable, and it's very easy for me to forget. But when I was working on campus, I always had a big, I guess it's a 2-liter bottle of like a pitcher of water, and I would fill that up every morning and commit to drinking that throughout the day. So I'm still working on getting better at doing that at home now that I'm at home. Having some movement every day, even if it's just a 10-minute walk, is another of my non-negotiables. Taking some time for mindfulness. That might be a brief seated meditation, or it might actually be when I'm out on my walk and just taking time to listen to the sounds and notice the greenery around me. Having time to connect closely with someone, whether it's just a heartfelt text or a hug with one of my family members. But I know that I need to have connection. And I think that my 5th one, when I wrote it before, was expression. So whether it's a little bit of journaling, or I was talking about my painting, some visual expression. That one doesn't happen quite as frequently, maybe not daily, but definitely a good few times a week. So just in case that helps you to get the juices flowing, but everyone is an individual. So your 5 wellness non-negotiables might be very different from mine, and that's absolutely okay. The best tools for wellness are the ones that you'll actually use. Do you have anything to add about that, Sam?
Not off the top of my head. A lot of your non-negotiables are similar to my non-negotiables. One that I will add in that's really been impactful for me, maybe that it's worth sharing as well, as a non-negotiable is, for me, it's avoiding black and white thinking. For me, I really know I'm flourishing when I can be more in the gray. I think for my wellness, that really has served me well, making that a non-negotiable for myself to consider the gray instead of just black and white. So sometimes these can be concrete things like our non-negotiable can be active things that we do, and they can also be things you can't really see either. They can be things that happen on the inside too, around our thinking or things like that. So yeah, just wanted to add that one piece in there.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Sam, and such a great reminder that, yeah, it could be sort of a quality of mind, or sort of
an approach to life.
An approach to life rather than a concrete activity. Absolutely. And so, yeah, just like everything else that we talk about with Wellness Wednesday, these are all invitations, and we really invite you to make this idea of 5 non-negotiables for your wellness your own, and really think about what will work for you, and what works now might change and evolve. You may discover that there's something else, or heck, it may be a list of 6 that you're like, I can't take that 6th one out. There's lots of room for you to make this your own, but we do invite you to write it down, and perhaps to share this list with someone that you're close to, and ask them what their 5 non-negotiables are for wellness. And you could even sort of connect with each other around how well it's going, to make sure that you prioritize them.
And Sarah, can I just mention that? Sure. I think that's such a good point, what you just said about your list can change depending on what's going on in our lives. So as things in our lives shift, sometimes those wellness non-negotiables may need to shift as well. Like, they might change and they might be different. So reassessing over time, yeah, that's a really good thought that you said there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it ties into that idea of just being aware of what's going on for us, and the more we can listen to what our needs are, the better equipped we are to respond in a way that that meets those needs. So yeah, changing over time, even though we say they're non-negotiable, that's between you and yourself. So if you notice, there might be something that works even better, then definitely give it a try. Cool. Well, I think we're just about wrapping up. Yeah, we're at the time for checkout, which again, in the live session is an interactive discussion. But we will invite you to just take a moment to reflect on what you'll take from this session with you, and how you might build it into your semester. Feel free to pause. Well, we're pretty much at the end of the session, so you might just want to go through the rest of the video. But yeah, just seeing what has stuck with you and how you can make it your own. And then just a reminder that more support is available. Sometimes watching webinars like this can help us to realize, I am struggling a little bit more than I thought, and help is available. Counseling services is available for Okanagan College students who are currently registered. For employees, there's the Employee and Family Assistance Program, which you can find out about on the OC website. And Government of Canada has a wonderful platform called Wellness Together Canada that was developed in the time of COVID. There's a really great assessment tool that where you can answer a very brief survey, and it gives you your scores on wellness, mood, and functioning, I think, are the 3 measures. And then if you fill it out over time, then you can sort of track how you're doing on those 3 measures. And there are also resources for mindfulness, and even counseling free of charge So it's definitely worth checking out and referring to family members or friends. And of course, here are Sam and my email addresses as well. So thank you for spending your time with us and for taking time to commit to your wellness. We hope that this has given you some ideas about how you can weave more wellness into your semester, and we'd love to have you join us again. All the best for a fruitful and healthy semester.